Hey everyone, this is the Nips and Sips podcast show featuring me. I'm Dr. Jeremy Boyd, my usual partner in crime over there, Dr. Brandon Cruz. And today we have a very, very special guest, Dr. Meynard Enriquez, who's a fellow in training, who's did some hours with Brandon and owns a couple clinics out in Hawaii. So if I was saying aloha, right, to Meynard over there, who's up extra early for us. But today we're going to be talking about mindfulness in the clinic and life and such and so forth. But before I get too much into it, how's it going, guys?
Going well.
Good.
Thanks for the intro, Jer. And I'll add to the intro a little bit to Meynard, give a little background. Meynard is a fellow at Regis University. It's where I did my fellowship training. I met Meynard on my test out day. We got to talk briefly. That day for me, it was a long travel day and exhausted, so we actually didn't get to spend too much time. Though Meynard was trying to talk to me, I was shot by the end of the day. But we got to, Meynard was kind enough to reach out to me to try and do his mentorship hours, which we got a full 2 weeks and then some, because he came a little early and hopped in on our spinal manipulation course, which was awesome to have him here. And I guess one of his other main reasons for coming this far east was he is part of the APTA Centennial program, and he was invited out to New York City to be a part of that and to present and speak on that. So with that, I will pass it off to Meynard so he can kind of fill everybody in a little bit. And he's up real early. He's up for 6:30 a.m. over his time. So Meynard, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time out to talk about this topic, which is near and dear to your heart and your practice.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me over here. Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for nearly 21 years. Awesome. And I've about 13 or 14 years of that in private practice. I've served as director at different places, so I've kind of gone through the ranks. I've pretty much worked in every facet of physical therapy. And now I'm on Kauai, running a private practice over here, a couple private practices, Hawaii Sports and Balance Center. I have about a staff of 17, so still kind of smallish, but perhaps big for the island. And I'm excited to talk about mindfulness today.
Awesome. Before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the show, let's not forget our drinks. If we can go around and we'll talk about what we have. Jay, you want to take us out, lead the way for us?
All right. So being that it is the eve of Christmas Eve, and I'm will be drinking a Christmas IPA. I got this, Christmas party. I got this 24 pack of Christmas variety beers. And this was one of them. And, shout out to my dog Goose for Goose Island, So I haven't had it yet, so no pre-rankings. I'm drinking out my Love City Brewing, Love's in there. It's the holidays, which is in Philly, great brewery. And I will give my rating as soon as I wet the palate there.
Always interested to see what Jeremy's rankings are. He's been very generous of late. Let's see if he's in the holiday spirit and giving mood, and see if he gives a generous.
This is a holiday beer here. I mean, technically shares the name of my dog. So
does that get elevated status just off the rip? Being it's a Christmas beer, though this show is not going to post till probably like April, but yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, but that's all right.
And I hear you've been working on that pour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first couple pours are pretty bad here. It's going with my clinical skill level. My pours are getting better. My ability to treat's getting better. So every once in a while, if you see me go off thing down here, it's usually because I spilled something. But good. You can smell it more than it tastes. The holiday. They must be. They didn't put any
like cinnamon
descriptors on here. Just kind of sad. It's just festively smooth, and it smells like Christmas in a cup. But I'm gonna give it 7.5. I'm not trying to be Grinchy. It's a good beer. I love Goose Island. But smells wonderful. So for smell,
Yeah, what's the
9.
smell? Okay, so
No,
smell a
smells a
9.
9. Definitely a 9.
Taste is a 7.5. All
Mhm.
right. All right.
I guess if you average that out,
Yeah.
8.5, but it's growing. I mean, again, I'm not getting away from IPAs as much, but this is definitely different. It's not like your classic just taste of a standard IPA, so not bad.
Very nice. Very nice. Maynard's got a good one. Well, we'll save his best for last there. I'll go a traditional second. I have a Jefferson's Ocean, which is a small batch bourbon whiskey here.
Ooh.
A patient of mine brought it in as a holiday gift for me. Knows I like the bourbon. So this one has an interesting story. This one is I guess goes and touches across every ocean as it's kind of being made, and I guess what's the correct term there? I don't even know, but whatever. As it's aging, the aging process, I guess. So it touches all the oceans, especially the warmer ones, the Caribbean ones, where it's hotter. They have a little temperature thing in here where it says the temperatures range from 93 to 124, and all the humidity and everything kind of gets the notes and oats and all the flavors kind of marinating a little differently. So I first had it actually one of Maynard's last days while he was mentoring. Meynard is a whiskey and bourbon gentleman as well, so we got to crack it open there. It's very smooth. I have it in our Pursuit PT low ball glass here that was created for our grand opening. So we have the Pursuit PT glass there, nice and fancy. And Maynard's got a nice special one. It looks good. What do you have? What are you sipping on today or this morning?
So today I brought some Koloa rum, and this is special reserve Koloa rum where they infuse it with actually Kauai coffee.
Awesome.
So I thought that was fitting, being from Kauai, and also fitting to be your guest for 2 weeks while I did my mentoring over there, and helped with some collaborative education. So I wanted to bring a little piece of Kauai on your show today.
Appreciate it. So those
Great
beans
choices
made
today,
on the
gentlemen.
island?
Yeah, so this is made on the island. They actually have an old sugar mill that's now not working, but they turned it into a manufacturing place for rum. And then we also have
Good decision.
some coffee farms here on Kauai. And from what I heard, actually, we have the largest coffee farm as far as square footage in America.
Wow, awesome.
So there's
knew?
coffee farms on the Big Island, you guys might have heard of Kona coffee, but we also have our version, which is Kauai coffee. So that's what I'm having this morning. So it's got a nice dark color.
Look at that.
And since it's 6:30, I'm having it with some hot cocoa.
There you go.
Coffee, cocoa, rum. Sounds like a great mix.
Yeah, Maynard, how far is Kona Brewing from you?
Oh, Kona Brewing. So that's the furthest island from us. So that's about an hour flight.
Oh, not terrible, I guess.
And there's some local breweries over here too that I'll take you guys to if you guys ever get out here.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
20,
We're gonna have Aloha. Maynard,
That's right.
let's plant the seed now for everybody. Maynard is going to be putting together, and we're going to be going out to teach at some point in, I don't know, a year or two. Manipaloha, what's the vision? You don't have to go into details, but what are we thinking, Meynard?
Well, I mean, I think that kind of leads into, I think it's we should know why I even came up with that idea. So
yeah,
this year, as part of why I was in New York, is because I got picked as a Centennial Scholar for the APTA. So for those of you guys that don't know what the APTA Centennial Scholars Program is, basically our APTA turned 100 years old in 2020. So to commemorate our 100th year, the APTA assembled a cadre of 100 physical therapists, handpicked from each state, and then a few from our specialty section, so orthopedics, neurology, women's health, pediatrics, and so forth, to form basically 100 physical therapists that'll be leaders in our profession for the next 3 or 4 years. And so basically I'm the guy that got picked for Hawaii, and that's how I ended up with Brandon, because we had our meetings in New York. And so I figured at the same time I was in New York, I'd go and check out Brandon and Jeremy and what they got going on over there. So as part of this Centennial Scholars Program, I had to come up with basically a project or a capstone project to try to address membership, advocacy for our profession, and then also improving educational opportunities for Hawaii. And that's when I came up with that idea of Manipaloha, which is basically a manipulation and manual therapy symposium, something of a larger scale, and something that we can bring over here to Hawaii and hopefully invite everyone else from the mainland to partake in.
Awesome. I mean, the name is
Perfect.
hopefully, if nothing else, the name gets you out there, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that we're going to be in Hawaii.
Exactly. Take
I'm
a little
looking
vacay.
forward to that. Yeah.
I'll plan the brewery experiences. Let's get this on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I think it's
daytime
gonna be
nips,
great. I
nighttime
think-
drinks.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need some good drinks, maybe some Kona beer, some Kauai beer. And
Awesome.
there's a lot of eco type of adventures over here. So it'd be nice to mix in some fun with some learning. And Hawaii is just a great place. It's basically, like I said, it's about 70 to 80 degrees year round. It's a little rainy right now, but the weather's pretty nice and most people don't mind coming here. So
Yeah. Just for a little context, we got on the show and Meynard was saying how it's cold, and I asked him the temperature, and he's like, it's like 70 degrees out. And just to let you guys know, it's in New Jersey, like low 30s right now. So
Yeah.
I'll take that 70 any day.
Any day of the week. Especially
yeah,
every day of the
that
week.
70 degrees is really cold though, man.
Yeah,
With,
yeah.
Poor
with the humidity,
things.
with the humidity, it probably feels about 65. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, well, double our
Still
temperature.
shorts weather.
Yeah. All right. So with that, and I know Meynard's got to start his day, so we'll jump into the show. But in the 2 weeks, and while the great thing about doing residency, especially a fellowship, is the mentorship, and it goes beyond the clinical stuff. We had so much time where we were just able to talk about life, clinic, business, ownership, mentorship, just family, things like that. And I think that's where the magic really happens, because you just get a different perspective on how somebody else thinks, and what the world is. But within that, and this aspect or this topic of mindfulness really goes to both personal and clinic life. I'm not there yet. I'll speak for Jeremy. I don't know where you are in this journey, Jer. We're just not there yet. But something that I was able to learn and I was self-reflected from was Meynard's I guess passion and viewpoint and willingness to be able to not only talk about this topic and educate, but how well he was able to educate a lot of the patients that he worked with. And it was definitely a different message and different voice. And the patients that, we see at my clinic definitely appreciated it. And, they raved about him. And, it's only been a couple weeks not even a couple weeks since he left, only a week since he left. And they're asking about him. You really made an impact in such a short time with them. And I know you have your own story. And if you want to, share whatever portions of that story with you, but if you can, just pass on your personal story and then your evolution in fellowship and into your own clinical practice, how you integrate this topic, I think would be great. It's definitely underutilized in the physical therapy profession.
yeah, well, so I entered fellowship, and I guess I did it kind of in reverse. I think most people will graduate from PT school and then perhaps go into residency and get a little bit more structured approach to learning. And then perhaps from residency, maybe practice for a bit and go right into fellowship. And there's definitely some advantages to that, but I guess the way that I kind of went through my career, I worked the first 5 years trying to just garner really good experience working at some of the best places in Southern California, spending about a year and a half, just being a sponge and learning from some of the best people we had down there. And so I did that for 5 years, really in preparation for starting my own private practice, because I knew, at least for myself, if I was going to open up a private practice, I'm most likely going to have to be able to handle whatever comes through the door without having the luxury to pick, just to stay in business, basically. So I did that for 5 years, and then I moved over to Kauai and practiced 3 more years at the hospital over here. And then finally, when I saw Kauai was a lovely place and it was near and dear to my heart, I actually went to Kauai during my graduation, and after my graduation, I mean, and my parents bought me a trip to go to Kauai, and fell in love with it. And I actually ended up applying for a job over here, but they didn't have any openings at that time. But I think that was perhaps God's path for me to do some other stuff before finally moving back, like 5 years later. And after that, started my private practice after working here for 2 or 3 years. And then once I got into private practice, it's just bang, bang, bang. It's just one thing after the other, and just got too busy. And Kauai being not only geographically far from the mainland, it's also really far in terms of opportunities for continuing education. There not a lot of, there's some fair to good continuing education courses you can have here, but it's more often it's the same kind of people come in every year offering the same course. So for me, I went through almost 17, 18 years before I finally said, hey, you know what, I think now that the business is doing good, it's running a bit more autonomously. But for those of you thinking about starting business, it's never fully autonomous, I think. But that's when I figured, hey, why don't I join a fellowship and do something a bit more structured learning approach to manual therapy. And so I decided to apply to a few fellowships, got in, and decided on the very prestigious and awesome program that they have at Regis University in Colorado. So shout out to those guys. They've really changed my life. But getting into the mindfulness, I didn't know what mindfulness was before fellowship. So I actually learned about it from one of my mentors and one of the instructors in there, Paul Minkin, who you guys, if you don't know him, look him up. He's got some great stuff, and he's definitely one of our leaders in our profession. You guys agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Mover and shaker, has done tons for this profession. And like you, I guess just before I went to fellowship, I was at an AM conference, which is basically a congregation, a bunch of fellows, and Paul Minkin was a keynote one year, I believe it was Utah, and he did his speech on mindfulness, and that was like an eye opener for me. And something I took back with me. And then I think, as time goes on, some of that fades because, I'm not actively integrating that as much. But continue on to your experience, but just testament to Paul.
Yeah. So yeah, he talked about mindfulness, and I had never heard about it. And so probably a lot of you know about mindfulness. I think it's been on the radar now in our profession. Still, when we look at it, not a whole lot of research though in terms of physical therapy and mindfulness specifically. Mindfulness was, for those of you that don't know, was first coined by Dr. Kabat-Zinn back in the 80s, actually. And so they've had mindfulness in terms of our other doctoring colleagues, so the surgeons and doctors, they've actually been kind of utilizing this. And I think there's more robust research on some of the MD's work at mindfulness and trying to integrate that into their patients. And I'm glad to really see us starting to do that. But when Paul Minkin talked about mindfulness, that's really my first introduction to it. And so even though my initial impetus for trying to join the fellowship was to get some structured learning, when he started to talk about mindfulness and where he was when he went into fellowship himself, and how really, even though this guy is a leader and he's getting into fellowship, he hinted that he was almost kind of burned out. And then so that really resonated with me, because after 17 years, yes, I had these this purpose of trying to elevate my game and my clinical practice. But that really resonated with me. He said, you know what, I was almost kind of really burned out. And so I think to a deeper level, I was kind of there. So when he started to do his mindfulness talk and really started to hit me, and I started to think about where I was in life and things going on in my life, I started to notice that I was basically road rage waiting to happen. And for me, I'm on, if you think of being on Hawaii and it's all happy and it's a really easy life. The weather's always good. There's not any weather involves psychological issues that you should have, but you're still kind of on a rock and you're on an island and running the practice. I didn't realize how actually stressed I was deep inside until someone else was willing to admit that in front of a class of 30 fellows. And I really respected that for him to be able to get his emotional armor off. And for someone if you see Paul Minkin, he's a big teddy bear. And so in his pictures, you can't tell, but he's actually about, what is he, about 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah, he looks like a grizzly bear until you start talking to him. Then he's that teddy bear. But yeah, genuine guy, nice guy. But I mean, he's an intimidating figure. And I think I talked about in our episode of our most awkward moments in the clinic. It wasn't in the clinic. It was I think it was the first time I met Paul. Like he came and just said hi to me, and I was like, and I just like shit my pants and walked away basically because I didn't know what to say to the guy. No, you take his, stature, and then as well as his I guess how accomplished he is.
Yeah.
And at least for me, it was intimidating.
Yeah, when I saw his picture, I was thinking Russian mafia. I better do good in this course.
Yeah, especially the old pictures.
Yeah. And so his talk, and I think he did a version, and like you said, the version of it in AOMT. And so he went through sharing some of his experience, and it really, really mirrored some of the things I was going through and some of the things that were kind of affecting me in my life. And we went through a really, really fast mindfulness exercise in the middle of during that course. And so we had all the fellows doing the raisin exercise. Actually, I could always give you a copy of that for some of your viewers, if something they can maybe attach on to the podcast. But the results of that were really powerful for not just myself, but everyone in class and everyone. I think it was funny that he would actually, this was his first lecture during that week. Yeah. And for us to be in a orthopedic manual therapy fellowship, and for him to start with something, for me at the time, was really abstract and far from being manual therapy. To me, I really saw that as something of, maybe I'm going to really give this a chance. I've had my biases in the past, especially on Kauai. Kauai is known for having healers. I don't know if you guys have that down those parts, but basically here, they have healers that can cure cancer from everything to, it's kind of all these natural healing experts, right? And so for me, I had always had kind of a bias, and I had a bias towards, I'd always had a preference for really allopathic medicine and the things that we're doing. So the mindfulness idea was very, very foreign to me, and it really took a lot of being able to try it and accept it. And it's really in trying it that I was convinced that this thing is something that I needed to incorporate in my practice.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, we've talked about it before, and Jeremy, maybe could you bring some insight to your fellowship or your experience. I know we shared Temple together at residency, but I guess on a smaller scale. I've always said I went to do residency so I could manip very well. And that was probably the least important thing I learned. It definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. It gave me perspective. Same thing with fellowship. You go there for an MSK type orthopedic thing, and you come out, as a leader, more passionate. You get to hear other people's stories. You get to expand upon just your narrow point of view of life, let alone treating, which is really the big eye opener for something like these programs. And a lot of people will bash advanced training or manual therapy certs and things like that, and it's like, you know, if that's your view of it, you're missing the boat. You know, you get so much other growth from just being around other like-minded people, but who are also have different minds and perspectives. I don't know if you have, and then Jeremy did his fellowship at more of a sports clinic. I don't know your experience. I know you had people from all over the country as well coming together on weekends too, Jer.
Yeah. So it was a really good opportunity at Institute for Athlete Regeneration. We talked about some components, especially more into the sports psychology, obviously being so athlete driven, and how, you know, it challenges your beliefs of like, I even seen some posts like, oh, in regards to manual therapy works in the short term on people that would already get better. And, athletes or people are just naturally going to get better because they're young, healthy, such and so forth. But really like diving into their stressors, not making the team, pressure from parents, the aesthetics in regards to their sport, especially female athletes and that sort of stuff. So we went into a lot of that. Which was good because again, most people perceive like everything that you're getting in a orthopedic manual physical therapy fellowship or residency is just that, just techniques and manual therapy and that's it. But to go into the depths of like psychology, I think that's where a lot of our worth is. And I was lucky to be exposed to it as a student. Shout out to the great Dr. Mary Lou Galantino, who would throw in mindfulness sessions in the middle of her lecture. Like she'd be stopping borderline mid-sentence and be like, all right, everybody, like, take a minute, put your head down, start doing some meditation. She made us do yoga in the middle of class once, came around, gave everyone like, upper trap massages. That was the type of person that she was. And we were a very holistic program. And I remember just kind of brushing that off. Like I was wanted to be a mechanic. I want to get in there, fix things. And the wiser and wiser I got, the more I realized how important that is. And actually, not many people know it, but Trifecta myself is actually involved in a research study with our school at Rowan on mindfulness of the injured athlete. So we're doing actually some studies on this to try and quantify it. It was originally done with athletic training and athletic training staff, and then I put my own spin on it of, I want to see how it does after doing a 30-second mindfulness thing. Can it change things like pain pressure threshold, range of motion, that sort of stuff, using that as my test retest. So kind of blending both worlds together, because I think that's where we need to go.
Yeah, it's funny, interesting that you mentioned the high school athletes that you have. And there's really, there's a nice, well done article on mindfulness interventions with high school and college athletes, and it really showed not just an improvement in attitude and motivation, but also reduction in injuries. And there's been, in looking at a few more recent articles in mindfulness, there's one by Westenberg in 2018, and this one's actually kind of cool. What they did was a brief mindfulness exercise and then improved outcomes in patients with upper extremity pathologies. And so the 60-minute exercise is actually on the internet. It's free. It's www.pixelthoughts.co. So pixelthoughts.co. And so what they did was they put these patients through this 60-second training and improved all the outcomes across the board, including pain, including some of their self-perceived outcomes, self-perceived pain outcomes. And it was really, really eye-opening.
Awesome. And we'll get that link for everybody as well. And I know we're probably got about 10 minutes here left before Meynard has to go attend to his busy clinic. So Meynard, can you just really just, try and in a nutshell, go over some key points maybe that you try and get across to people? I know one thing that I've integrated right away is the word bombing. Is that correct? Terminology. Yeah. And then a couple, maybe, I think you had two other kind of key points that at least while you were with me, you kind of emphasized to some patients, and I've been trying to, continue that and carry that on. But You're better at it than I am. So if you can share, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, and so for those you don't know, the mindfulness is really the definition of mindfulness is being in the present, but being the present without judgment. And then so when we're thinking about mindfulness, they always say that when when you think about the past, you're going to be very angry. And if you're always thinking about the future, you're going to be very anxious.
Yeah.
But when you're in your present, then you're going to be at peace. So it's really trying to find it. And it's not to say that we shouldn't pay homage to those things that happened to us in the past. And doesn't mean that we need to be a recluse and forget about the future and just not go to work and just stay home all day.
Yeah.
It just means that we need to accept and acknowledge those things, acknowledge our past, acknowledge our future, but jump back into the present, because the present really is the only place and the only time that we can do anything about it. And so I think with all the emphasis on psychosocial things, so catastrophization, fear avoidant behavior, it's sometimes it's us. Yeah.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's us paying attention to those things, but never really jumping back into our present. So I think as far as mindfulness and really pitching it to our patients, I found the use for this really because I think partly because of the setting I'm in. So my setting is very different from what I saw when I was in New Jersey and New York for a couple of weeks. Our setting is very rural health. So that means, especially on Kauai, like I said, everyone wants to move to Kauai. So hopefully none of my doctoring colleagues will listen to this podcast. But basically what ends up happening is you have some poor doctors moving to the island and kind of retiring and staying here and never updating their skills. So the medical system over here really leaves much to be desired. But from a physical therapy perspective, what that does is it allows the physical therapist to really get involved in a primary care approach. And so when we're looking at a patient from the primary care lens, we really need to look at that person, like Jeremy said, holistically. And that means looking at biomechanical, biological, psychosocial, doing the things that we normally do, what Brandon likes to call the hard skills, but also perhaps working on our soft skills and listening to the patient, finding out not just what's going on with them with a systems approach, what other comorbidities that they might have that are not addressed, but also looking at that psychological component. So I remember Tim Flynn said there's a value in itself in doing a thorough medical examination. And so for that medical examination, we all know what the medical system is going through right now. And it's basically where doctors themselves and even us, we're having to see patients for shorter amount of time. And I don't care how great you are. If you only have 10 minutes to see someone, you're probably not going to be able to do a very good job. So the nice part though, is that as physical therapists, we do have 30 minutes, we do have 45 minutes. And if it's at the end of the day, you might even stretch it out to an hour, although I'll definitely work on that time management. But we get that opportunity to be able to get to know this patient. We get that opportunity to really talk to them about some of their comorbidities that they need to address, maybe their weight gain, their hypertension, their hyperlipidemia that they have, and also these psychological things that might be ruminating and sensitizing their system. So if we look at it through the lens of, let's say, an Adrian Lowe and the pain sciences, really, we know that pain and your experience, whether it be whatever symptom it is, whether it be pain, dizziness, balance issues, it's all really a combination of everything that's sensitizing us in our body. And so when I look at it, I always describe it as that itch. So when you have that itch in your back, and then I have my wife scratch it, and I'm, oh, okay, go up. And then, no, go down, and go to the right, go to the left. And it's really, when we think about it, it's not that we had one itch. It's like you had multiple itches, but your perception of it is just that one spot until you clear out that one spot. And then that brings to light another spot that you need to address. And then for me, it was really, for a while, it's like, okay, well, I did. And for me, I come from a NIOPT training. So it's very, very biomechanical. And so once I did all that, and a lot of our patients here, my patient population, we have quite a few that have really chronic pain issues. So once I did everything that we normally do within our compass of physical therapy treatment, then I started to see, well, this patient is only getting this much better. And so it's really time to address some of those things with the psychosocial issues, and mindfulness has, for me, been a good tool. So I have a few things that I like to use for mindfulness. The first one's just basically a word bomb, than what Brandon said. And so word bomb really is just the way that we teach it, and the way that Paul Minkin taught me is that really just get a piece of paper, and you might need 2 or 3 when you first start. And you just basically write down all the thoughts in your head. And it might be, and when we have thoughts, it's in fragments. So it might be blue sky, brown carpet, I love my wife, I hate my wife, I hate my job, I love my job, whatever it is, just write it down. And then what you're going to find is you keep writing and you keep writing, and eventually you're going to run into a moment when you don't have anything else to write. And then basically you get that piece of paper. Once you achieve that, basically that mental fatigue or that mental exhaustion where you don't have anything else to write, then you get that piece of paper, or if you're a texter, if you're a typer, you can even just open up a note, and then once you're done typing in all your stuff, you just press delete, or you burn that piece of paper, you throw it away. It's nothing for anyone else to look at. It's just for you to be able to acknowledge all your thoughts, jump back into your present, move to the next thought, move to the next thought. And I really like this exercise because everyone has their notion of what meditation should be. And so for some, it might be actually meditating, might be doing yoga. For others, it might be weightlifting at 6 a.m. in the morning with his staff. So for some, it might be running. And for a lot of my patients,
Shots
it's
fired.
Oh, and I'm gonna be back there to try to make those. Don't worry. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Cruz over there, he works out nearly every morning at 6 a.m. So really, really good model, not just for our profession, but for our own well-being.
It doesn't show, but
yeah.
That's
So
how
the
you do
nice part
10
is that,
315 deadlifts and shout me out on it on social media.
oh yeah, there you go.
that's a challenge. That was a challenge.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm gonna get a bar. I'm gonna get some plates here at our other clinic over here, and you guys watch. I'll be in on that.
Yes.
Sometime in 2022. Actually, I talked to one of the schools here. So our other clinic, we have a whole bunch of circuit equipment. So we're actually gonna donate that to the local school over here, and then do more of a functional type of workspace similar to what you two have over there. So
I'm glad we're able to I guess have an impact, where you're, I mean, Meynard's been texting me since he stopped, and, reinvigorated, to say the least, and, wanting to implement, different aspects into what he's already doing. And clearly he's a successful business owner. You've been open 13 years. A lot of people feel like, what do I need to change? Even, commending Meynard and others in our program as well that have been practicing 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And, going back, that's mindfulness in itself. That's awareness in itself of, hey, let me put myself out there and try to become better. And you go in there thinking one thing, and then you get a whole host of other skills or just positive experiences by doing this type of program. So kudos to Meynard. And even in our conversation, I'm like, dude, I'm 13 years younger, and I'm like, I felt weird trying to mentor you. I'm like, you're my elder, you're my senior. Why am I telling you stuff? Like it's a respect level thing. So, kudos to Maynard to he just took it all in. He kept asking questions, There was a point I was like, are you going to say anything? Like, I feel like I'm just talking here and just rambling on, type of deal. So, kudos to Maynard for that, and others
awesome.
too. I know other people are doing it as well. As we wrap up here, so I just wanted to say that. But I know you said you're revamping your clinic. Not easy. Very, that you could do a lot of other stuff with that money. Pay your staff, pay yourself. Buy a luxury or something, and you're reinvesting it into your business, your company, to hopefully make it better for not only yourself but your staff and the people you serve.
Yeah, well, change is good, and we're always scared of change, but change is good, and keep things refreshed and renewed, and so sometimes incorporating mindfulness might be something new to some of you out there. It's I would say that it's something that you need to really be able to spend some time with the patients. It's not something that we can definitely give prescriptively, because I think it can turn a lot of people off. But I think if it takes some time to, and I think we're out seeing one of the patients down there, and really with the way that the appointments are structured. Let's say with this person, it took a little bit longer for me to find that light switch that I can start to pitch it, because we can't give this prescriptively. It's very much pragmatic, and knowing social things about this person, their social lifestyle, their social environment, trying to figure out what might be a trigger for them, for you to be able to start to tell them. But I think the other thing that helps me kind of sell or pitch the mindfulness thing is also taking off some of your emotional armor. Letting, if the patient knows that, yeah, you had some tough times for them, and I'm very straight up. I tell them there's been times when I've had some arguments with my wife, and the thoughts that were going through my head as we're having these arguments are ones that I didn't think I should have. And so at that point, I knew there was something wrong, and it was so powerful being able to unload using the mindfulness exercises, and get really who I feel myself is, and get myself back. And so sometimes we need to leave ourselves vulnerable, just like with any relationships. Our relationship with our patient is not any different than our relationships with each other. And it's when you put yourself vulnerable that you really give that person some power to be able to be closer to you. And so we need to do that. And that's something that's worked for me to be able to sell that. I'm very upfront with some of those things and some of the things that have gone through with me. And that really resonates with patients when they think about giving mindfulness a chance. So yeah, so the body scan, I think that's worked good. Body scan's good to do before you do whatever it is that you do for meditation, whether that's church or surfing or whatnot. So that's one that I always like to give as a good starting exercise.
Awesome. And it's I know we're running over time here, so unless you got anything else to say, I kind of just want to wrap it up. A lot of this, like you said, it's not dogmatic. We can't go over every little detail, in a short little set, podcast like this, but being aware as a clinician, and hopefully now you can maybe take a step back and, hey, the traditional PT is not working. And you think trying to learn a cervical manip is hard. I think this is even harder, to be able to effectively communicate. And now you're dealing with emotions and people's beliefs and belief systems. I mean, that's a real challenge as well, that it takes time to do this and do this correctly or effectively. So
you will fail.
You will fail. We've had our PIN science education podcast on this. Hopefully this adds to that. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to that. But at least, let this be at least opening the doorway to something else in your clinical practice. I'll leave it at that. Jeremy, I don't know if you have anything you want to add in before we close up.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's just something that, you gotta be open with. Maynard hit the nail on the head there. Is, you have to be vulnerable yourself. If you're holding on to these sort of things, patients feel that. I don't know how, but they'll feel it. So if you're not being open and honest with them, they won't be able to express themselves to you. They'll keep their, yellow flags orange flags, they're stressors to themselves. But once you start opening up, they're gonna spit it right back, and that's when the real magic happens. I know I had a student recently, and all her most challenging students, not challenging patients, were all individuals she didn't get to that level with. And as soon as she did, as soon as we kind of coached her in, they all turned the corner. So, just be open to it. I'm a huge fan of the body scanning and mapping. So, there's some great resources on that online for everybody, but definitely check it out. But, I think that's it.
Well,
Maynard,
thanks,
any
guys.
parting words
coming.
before you run off for your day? Thanks for staying an extra 5 minutes. I know we went over.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thank you guys for having me on, and hopefully that strums someone's string here that's listening. So if anything, thank you guys again for letting me do this. Is my first time doing a podcast, so this is awesome.
Awesome. We hope and plan to have you back on. We're gonna set up Manipalooza, or I'm sorry, Manipaloha. Manipalooza was EIMs. I don't want to get like a copyright hit or anything like that. But we're gonna set up Manipaloha, and I'm looking forward to checking out the island and visiting your neck of the woods there, man. So thank you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry Christmas, guys.
The next one.
Yeah.
Happy New
Thanks a
Year.
lot, Maynard. Appreciate it.
All right.
Cheers, everybody.